On January the 16th, in 1991, I flew home to our place outside of London from Cairo, Egypt, where I had been on a 2-week trip ministering to some missionaries who were there. Now, the on that flight, it actually turned out to be the last British Airways flight before the start of what we came to know as Desert Storm, Operation Desert Storm. Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait on August the 2nd, 1990, and now on January the 16th, the skies were clearing because they knew that there was going to be a war that started. And in fact, it was on the following day, January the 17th, that this operation began. That did, in short time, actually, remove Saddam Hussein's troops from the country of Kuwait. Now, I got home on the evening of the afternoon of the 16th, and we saw the news that just people leaving the Middle East, all over from the Middle East, and one of the major points of departure was Cairo. People could get there, and there wasn't really, it was far enough away from anything that might be happening up in the Persian Gulf, and so that was the place from which a lot of people, hundreds of people, thousands, were fleeing the Middle East, and that would include business people, non-essential embassy personnel, and a lot of missionaries. There were just people leaving the region, and as we got into that war, you could see the wisdom of that departure. Well, that night I went to bed, and I had a dream, a vision, really, in the middle of the night. And in that dream, it was what I came to call the mother of all tsunamis. There was I was standing in this vision or dream. I was standing on a seashore. As I was standing there, the water began to recede, and it kept going. And it went out to where you could see, where you haven't seen maybe for years and years. I mean, the water was going out, and it was kind of disturbing. It was disturbing, and so I thought, well, I have to stop this. And so I remember leaning down, like I was leaning down and pulling the water back as though I could somehow have an effect of reversing the tide and not allowing it to go out that far. And then I was in the stream or vision. I was standing on kind of a cliff looking over, and I began to hear this very loud noise. And as this noise crescendoed, you could see the water coming back. And the Lord spoke to me, and I think, and said, "Look," I don't know if He said "look," but the thought came to mind that tide. I felt like God say, "Jim, you grew up on the coast of California. Tides go out, but tides, they come back in." And so what I was hearing was the tide coming back in. And the distinguishing marks of this visual that I had was, number one, it was coming in with quickly and with a great force, and it was really high. I mean, it was just 100 feet high or more. I mean, it was just coming in a great volume of water at great speed, and it came in, and it fell off the area where it was and kept right on going and clear way up into like low mountains or whatever, but just way up. So the height of that ocean now there was way beyond in space and in height than it had ever been. So I began to understand what was being spoken to me, and in fact it's like I heard the Lord speak and say that not only would the people be coming back, and I was especially concerned for the workers, gospel workers, those who were proclaiming Christ and discipling people in the Middle East. I was especially concerned for their departure and wanting their return. That's, I think, what I was trying to hold back or bring in. And the Lord spoke to me and said, "Listen, it's the tide went out, it came back in, and with great force, and it went to places where it hadn't been." And so I felt like God was saying to me that the missionaries would return in great number, and they would be in the places where they had left, but also in places where the gospel had not been proclaimed in decades, at the very least. So I woke up in the morning, I shared that with Connie, And we together said, I think we're supposed to be a part of that increased number returning. We were really comfortable living in England. We loved it in southwest London area, and but we felt like that we were to respond, to be a part of that tide that came back in, to join those who were returning, and to increase that number. Now I had a meeting with the mission uh, staff that I was working with there, and there was a kind of a lament that, hey, we're not going to get back in there. Some places never get back into. And I said, well, I think not. And to be honest, I don't remember if I shared that vision. I don't know that it would have been received as such, but I just remember saying no. I believe they're gonna go back. They're going to go back quickly, and then we're going to go to places where we haven't been in a long time with the gospel. And that's exactly what happened. As missionaries responding to just the news and seeing the maps of the area and God speaking to their hearts to be there for Jesus' sake. And they went into Central Asia, and they've been in places where missionaries had not been, and there was a tremendous increase in the number of missionaries that went into these areas, these regions, Kazakhstan. Now, listen, the history of that is that there was a great move of the Spirit, like, for example, in Kazakhstan in the 90s, early 90s, starting in 91. This has had a lot to do with Russia, the Soviet Union falling apart. But that vision that God gave me there on the evening or early morning, January 17th, as it turns out, he did fulfill. He did fulfill. And we actually, on the basis of that revelation, we actually moved family from London to Cairo, minus Karen, our oldest girl, who we dropped off in California as she began her studies in university to become a nurse. So it was the mother of all tsunamis, my night vision that I had there, and it absolutely changed our location and changed a lot. But most importantly, it changed the opportunity that that people had to hear the gospel, many of whom had not ever had a chance to do so. So that was something that God did in the context of a terrible war and all of that. God was speaking, and then His army went forth in response to His leading.